And welcome to the Aftershock with Alex Morgan. I'm Phil Leva. We are here live at PayPal Park after a 3-1 loss for the San Jose Earthquakes against the Los Angeles Galaxy. The arch rivals start the season here at home, Alex, and it's not good news. I want to hear your initial thoughts after what just happened here at the stadium.
Yeah, that was a brutal way to start the season at home. That was on track to be one of their worst home openers in San Jose Earthquakes history. They lost 3-0 in their home opener in 2010 against Real Salt Lake. They've lost 3-1 a few times, most recently against the New York Red Bulls in the 2022 home opener. And when the LA Galaxy scored their third goal early in that second half, it looked like it could get worse than that.
Oh, yeah.
The Quakes were shambolic at that point in the game. It looked like they hadn't practiced transitions at any point in preseason. Both defensively, they were getting beat down the wings every single time. The midfielders were not tracking back. And offensively, they didn't look like they knew what they were doing. Amal Pellegrino getting his first start in the wing for San Jose was a ghost, and not in a good way. We know that he likes to get into those half spaces and kind of pop up in the box, but he wasn't doing that enough tonight. The Quakes weren't finding him. When he was on the ball, he wasn't good enough.
Right.
And the Quakes weren't able to connect with Jeremy Ebobisse again going forward. This was the first game that really convinced me that's a serious problem that they need to address. And the thing that convinced me was that when Preston Judd got in the second half, the Quakes looked better. They looked better when he was on the field. He got the one goal that made it less of an embarrassment for them. And look, I'm curious what Luchi Gonzalez has to say. We have Jamin Moore and Robert Jonas, who are both in the media room with Luchi Gonzalez, waiting for his press conference as we speak. So in a few minutes, we'll be tossing it over to them. Then they will come back and join us here, pitchside by the bar, and excited for a fun show. We're going pitchside right now to be joining y'all live.
So after this really tough loss on the road against FC Dallas, the Earthquakes come home, and you anticipate that they're going to come out firing on all cylinders, right? And honestly, as the game started, the Quakes did have a lot of momentum, but they were unable to defend against what was a really challenging player in Paintsill, right, for the LA Galaxy, just tearing the defense to shreds and causing a lot of problems. But I do agree with you. We're going to have an opportunity to talk about Pellegrino's performance, especially when Jamin gets back, because I think there's going to be a difference of opinion between.
There's going to be a lot of me and Jamin have been bickering since about.
So my folks is to keep you two from choking each other out and getting at each other's throats. That's
you
what I'm
should
going to
sit
do.
on that side of the table.
Absolutely. So we'll save a spot for Jamin over here. But that loss against FC Dallas, what were you to see from this team coming into the match? I mean, yes, Preston Judd did make quite the difference. If you haven't gone over and read Dominic's article yet, it's posted on QuakesEpicenter.com. He talks a lot about the new players who've come into the team. One of them is Preston Judd, right? We saw him score in the last Cali Clasico that he made an appearance against the Earthquakes before he joined the squad. But he comes in, he provides a different dynamic. What were some of the things that you saw that were different, when Preston Judd came into the match, particularly? What was different about this team when he was in versus what we saw in this match and what we saw against FC Dallas at the end of that match as well?
His hold-up play was good. He was able to get the ball with his back to goal, turn, find a pass, and connect. And that was good. And I believe we're going actually to speak to him right now in the press conference.
Hey, obviously, the game itself didn't go well. Congratulations on the goal, obviously against your former team as well. What positives do you think you can take from the game? What positives did you personally take from being able to get in there and get the time and be able to get that goal? Where does the team go from here? Dropping their opening game at home.
Yeah, the good thing about right now is that just beginning of the season, we got lots of games left. Felt great being out there in front of the fans. Felt all right scoring, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We lose 3-1. Again, we have a game Saturday, so our eyes looking forward to Saturday. And it's a must win early on the season. We got to get right on track.
But Preston, what did you see on your goal?
Right place, right time. I was there to finish it in. Yeah.
You came in the game, it was already 3-0 to the Galaxy. What are the instructions at that point? Is there anything tactically to consider, or is it just try things and see what happens out there?
Yeah, I think as a forward, my job is to try to score goals, and at that point, I just need to bring some energy on the field. We're down 3-0. Just any bit of energy helps team morale. Get another goal, team morale. and move forward again to next week.
So obviously, tonight you scored your first goal, hopefully of many. I'm just wondering, how do you feel that you fit into Lucci's system so far?
Yeah, I think I'm a pretty good fit. I think I'm still trying to learn everything he wants me to do tactically, and that will come with throughout the season. But I'm looking forward to playing the system and moving forward.
How important was to manage the emotions to score the goal?
Yeah, it is against my former team, and obviously there's a lot of emotions, whether it's bad or good emotions. But at the end of the day, I think as a professional athlete, we're in these big moments, and it's our job to keep our cool, not play emotionally. So I wasn't too emotional when I got on the field. I was ready to work. It was a tough situation, but try to do my best in that moment.
Question, you guys controlled the ball in possession in that first 10 minutes. So how heartbreaking was it, the big score in that 18th minute like that, kind of taking momentum back from you guys?
Yeah, it's tough to give up a goal early in that game, especially after we felt we played well in the first 10, 15 minutes, like you said. But we need a better answer after that. We need to turn around as a team and put our feet in the ground and keep going. We played well. We should have kept on. We did keep on playing well, and we got unlucky on the counter. So,
having scored on both sides of the Cali Classico, what does the Cali Classico mean to you?
A lot different this year. Looking forward to the next one. I think there's a lot of history in this, a lot of history with the Classico. Like I said, looking for the next one. Hopefully I get the game-winning goal instead of a consolation goal.
You said next Saturday is a big game. You don't want to lose points at home. But what do you guys do differently to get a better result?
Yeah, I think we'll look at film on Monday, try to learn from that. And after that, throw this game behind us, it's a fresh start. Fresh build up to next week. I think just getting back as a team, being more unified, communicating more, and just going to war with each other, fighting for that badge on the front, not the name on the back. Just keep moving forward.
There was a lot of integration of new players last week and then this week with Pellegrino starting, a couple of subs that were made. Where is this team at in terms of kind of gelling as a unit from what you've seen in training and even what you saw from the bench tonight before you had?
Yeah, I think with or without integrating players, it's always difficult in the first couple of games of the season. After a long preseason, just getting back with your old teammates, getting with new teammates, learning your connections. But I think we're in the right direction right now. It's a tough result again, like I said, but it's still too early in the season to start panicking. So I think with the integration of the new players, I think we're just going to keep on getting better from here.
All right, we will go to a question from anyone joining virtually. Alex Morgan, do you have a question for us?
Unmuted.
Yeah.
Muted.
Yeah, I think going into the second half, we were sticking to our game plan. We didn't execute towards the end of the first half, so we just needed to refresh from the half. And then once we conceded the third goal, we had to start trying new things to get back in the game. So I think it did change throughout that second half. We just had to throw everything we had at them. At the end of the day, it didn't work to what we thought it could. But again, next game Saturday.
All right, everyone, thank you for joining us. We will be joined by head coach Luchi Gonzalez coming up next.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night.
All right, so with the opportunity to talk to Preston Judd in the press conference here, Alex, you had a chance to run over and ask a question really quickly about the second half game plan as they were chasing the score. I'm just interested in some of your thoughts in regards to what Preston had to say in the press conference.
Yeah, well, we're getting a little wind here. So bear with us from the audio with our studio flying around here for a sec. But the second half game plan did not work. They conceded a goal into the second half, and it was the same way they had conceded in the first half. Down the right wing, the Galaxy were making those overlapping runs and then getting the ball wide and forcing the Quakes center backs, forcing Rodriguez, Tanner Beeson to make difficult decisions, get pulled out of position, and then cutting right down the middle and scoring. That's exactly what happened in the first half. That's exactly what happened in the second half. That's not a new thing. Teams have been making those runs against San Jose, repeatedly over the course of last season. But tonight, the Quakes had absolutely no idea what they were doing to defend those situations. They weren't getting midfield cover when those situations happened, and they didn't adjust at halftime.
Right.
And then you're down 3-0, and then, they're chasing the game the whole time, and they didn't really have a coherent strategy going forward. It felt a little bit like Luchi Gonzalez was kind of throwing pieces out there, just hoping ball. I was arguing with this about Jamin in the middle of the game, and I guess I get to fire the first shots because he's not here yet.
Well, let me step in and give a little bit of pushback then, since Jamin isn't here to speak for himself.
Jamin right now?
Let's talk about the first goal, all right? We can see, if you go back and watch the footage, one of the big issues with it was the Quakes were pressing, right? We saw Carlos Gruezo step over to press to win the ball, and he created open space in the midfield. Now, I think this is an instance in which this is a player decision that wasn't necessarily an issue with the system itself, but it was a matter of Gruezo stepping forward and making that move to press the opposing player. Now, what ends up happening there is when he steps forward to press the defender, it creates a lot of open space. And what happened was Marco Delgado actually stepped right into the midfield and occupied that space, finding Paintsill on the wing. And you saw the little 1-2 between them, which actually created the goal. That's actually what would have been nice to have seen from Pellegrino during the match. You mentioned there were a lot of issues there. So, yes, I agree with you there. But it seemed like the game plan, the momentum was going really well for the Quakes, but they just got hit on the counter there. They got the counter punch, right? And they were unable to handle Paintsill just running right at them. I think that the substitutions that we saw later in the match were indicative of that problem. We saw Tanner Beeson get pulled. We saw the switch for Carlos Acapo, and we saw an entirely, after they came out for the second half, we saw something entirely different. So I'm actually curious, Alex, what you think about that as well, because that was one of the major changes. And we still have to talk about Bruno Wilson, who got a lot of time out there on the field, and the change that was made at the fullback position as well.
Yeah, just to be clear, I blame Carlos Gruezo for every single one of those goals that the Earthquakes had. Well, but every single one happened because they got the ball wide in the wing and then cut the ball back into the middle. Yeah. And every single time, where was Carlos Gruezo? Yeah. He was trailing by 15 yards. He was not tracking back. Every single time, he was watching the ball. He could. He chose not to.
He settled in at certain points.
San Jose Earthquakes club record signing. Carlos Gruezo is the San Jose Earthquakes club record signing. They expected him to come in and solidify the midfield and prevent that from happening. He didn't prevent that from happening at all tonight. Right now, the area in the field I'm most worried about is him and Jackson Ewell, because neither of them were covering defensively. They were both getting caught out, and all three could have been if they had been doing their jobs, right? Luchi Gonzalez is concerned about structure. He's concerned about when the team makes individual errors, which are bound to happen, which you cannot prevent, that they have the structure to be able to recover and to be able to handle some of that danger and to absorb some of that danger. And that's what happened. Every single time you had an area in the wing that, the Galaxy had a good play and they got in behind. You could argue, sure, in that first goal, Palmieri, he shouldn't have turned outside. He should have been quicker to recognize the danger of that run.
Right.
You could have argued that for Jackson Ewell as well. Jackson Ewell, for the second goal, he should have been covering Paintsill immediately. He should have been dropping immediately as soon as that transition started. Yes, those are both true. And if I were Luchi Gonzalez, the thing I would be most concerned about is the structure. Because if you have the midfielders who are there, if you have them watching, if you have them covering the way they need to be, none of those goals would have happened. And the third goal is the worst. The third goal is the absolute worst because it's Ricky Pooch. It is Ricky Pooch. It is the one guy on the field that you need to be marking at all times. And the Quakes, as far as I can tell, didn't bother with him the whole game. Ricky Pooch, every single time the Galaxy wanted to get Ricky Pooch on the ball, Ricky Pooch got on the ball and started spraying passes every which way.
Right.
Ricky Pooch was running riot in that game. In the past, I feel like the Quakes have actually shut him down pretty well.
They have.
When you man mark Ricky Pooch, when you watch out for him, when you cover him, you can mark him. Even when he's playing his best, you can mark him. The Quakes didn't seem to bother with that today. Every single time Ricky Pooch wanted to get on the ball, he got on the ball. And in this case, he got on the ball back completely wide open.
Again,
that is absolutely
Alex. I'm seeing the same things that you're seeing in this match. So I'm actually interested in what Jamin has to say, because you had an opportunity to talk with him in the press box a little bit, and we'll give him a chance to speak for himself. But really, the root of the issue throughout for me was in the central midfield. I mean, yes, you're right. Like, we saw those moments in which Paul Marie was chasing after the wingers, right? We saw the moments in which the center back, we saw Tanner Beeson having to do it. He couldn't get back quickly enough with Marky Delgado coming at him, with Paintstill coming at him. There wasn't much that he could do. But the reason why that happened was because there was so much space in the midfield, right? Too many indecisive moments, not enough commitment or overcommitment, one or the other. They weren't able to find the right balance.
And you know what made me the angriest? What made me the angriest is that of all the substitutions Sushi Gonzalez made, Carlos Carrezo and Jackson Ewell weren't one of them.
Yeah, I know.
He was every single offensive player. The problem.
So let's go back for a second here then, because we kind of started talking about the impact that he had.
Well tonight in the midst of
balance things out. But let's talk about one of the positives in the match, and that is Preston Judd. But we need to talk about what was different when he came onto the pitch. So I'll tell you what I noticed about him as a player and the tools that he has, right? Because this isn't something that we have talked about really on the show, only briefly. And actually going back and watching some of the footage of him play, watching him play with LA Galaxy too, one thing that I noticed is he's really, really good at finding space in between center backs. And we saw that throughout this match when he was in there. And also one other really great thing about Preston Judd is he is outstanding on set pieces. And he is a great aerial threat, as we saw on the goal that he scored. And so I think it's worth talking about his performance a little more than just like harping on some of the challenges that they had, because we do want to save a little bit of that for Jamin as well, because I feel like right now we're going to need Jamin to kind of balance things out, because I'm interested to hear what he has to say. Because look, guys, when I covered most of the match today from outside of the press box, which is one of my favorite spots in the stadium, which is up on the corner. Now, you guys were sitting in the press box, and I wasn't there to like mediate between the two of them, and they were at each other's throats. And so I cannot wait to hear exactly what it is that they're going to be talking about.
Look, you bring up a good point about Judd, because Judd, when Judd came on, he was coming on with the goal of changing the way that the offense was playing, of getting more connection into that front line, and of actually creating dangerous offensive transitions.
Right.
And I think he did that. The problem was that Lucci then made a bunch of other substitutions that didn't really feel well thought out to me, bringing on Buddha and on Judd at the same time, and then changing Vitor Costa on the left all at once. It felt like by the 60th minute, they didn't really have a shape, and they were kind of
okay, so let's talk about that a little bit, because there were a couple of different things that we saw up top, right? We saw Preston Judd with Jeremy Ebobisse for a short period as well. So we saw the two of them both at the forward position, and then we saw Jeremy Ebobisse get subbed out, and we saw something different, where we saw Benji Kikanovic come into the game, who I was just talking to somebody before, and they were
at the 10, basically.
Yeah. Also, like, after scoring the goal in the previous game against FC Dallas, you think that he would have the momentum to go forward and get that spot, another opportunity to get some starting minutes, but we see Pellegrino come in, which is, I think, maybe where some of your frustration lies as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Preston Judd, did it work when Jeremy Ebobisse was on the field with him? And what happened afterward when they were not playing together, when they went back to one single forward? Where's the difference? What are you seeing there, Alex?
They were only on the field very briefly together. So Jamin would tell me we need to give them more time to figure out what that looks like. Look, I was mad that Jack Skane was the one that was taken off. I thought Jack Skane was the best player on the field.
Really?
He was the one midfielder who was working, who was creating offensive transitions, who was making things happen, and who was actually doing his defensive duties as well. So I was really surprised and disappointed that Jack Skane was the one taken off. It was hard as good as Jack Skane does in that position. And it didn't quite work with Jeremy and Judd. In my opinion, again, we're going off 5 minutes, but my worry is that they're both similar players who like to do similar things, and having both of them playing in kind of a hold-up role doesn't really make sense. Because what you need in that position is you need a player who's going to hold up, who's going to post up, get the ball with his back to goal, and then going to drop it off to a number 10 who can distribute the ball.
Okay.
And Preston Judd was doing a good job with the hold up and was doing a good job getting involved. So he can play that number 9 role well. Jeremy Ebobisse was not in this game. They do still need a number 10 to drop into that role. They briefly had Pellegrino playing that number 10 position, but again, he didn't get involved very much. That clearly is not where he's the most comfortable.
Alex, how are you
he's
feeling?
Not comfortable being the one running the offense.
Right.
And then they had Benji Kikanovic playing that position.
He just came in. He just came into the squad.
What that second half showed is that they don't know who they want the number 10 to be,
Right.
because they had 4 different guys playing that position in the second half, and none of them worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was definitely a challenge. I was actually going to go back to Jeremy Ebobisse. We saw him. He gets the start. He plays an entire first half. He struggles a bit at times. I think on the third goal, the LA Press forced the ball off of Jeremy Ebobisse, which allowed them to get down the field really quickly and score. It was the second or third goal. Regardless, let's talk about Jeremy Ebobisse's performance in this match. His performance overall.
It was brutal. It was a brutal game for Jeremy Ebobisse. Most of the time, I think that the issues start before Jeremy Ebobisse. Most of the time, I think that Jeremy Ebobisse is not the problem, and that Jeremy Ebobisse is a symptom of the problem, right? The fact that he's not getting connected is because the Quakes aren't finding him. They aren't utilizing him in the right positions. They aren't getting the ball to him in the first place. Tonight, I feel like he did get on the ball a few times, did not create very much when he got on the ball. And it felt like they were trying to find him, but they couldn't find him. And I know that we're having some image issues right now. So working with our producer, Renee, to solve those image issues while we're running our setup here pitch side. But as long as everyone can hear us, we'll through it.
And we will have Jamin and Robert with us momentarily as well. They are currently over at the press conference, and so I'm sure they've got a lot of things that they would like to add to the conversation. And so
yeah, that's all to say, Phil, that this was the game that convinced me that Preston Judd needs to be starting up top, and that Jeremy Ebobisse needs to find a new way to fit into this line.
I absolutely agree. I was thinking, this is one of the things that the Quakes have been missing. And not only does Preston Judd cause problems for the center backs and find the space there, and he's an aerial threat, he is just one of those guys that comes in and you can tell that he's just got that hunger to score, right? We saw a couple of, there was at least one take that he had, one shot that he took that was just like probably not the best opportunity, and yet he took it because he had like a short amount of minutes to prove that he has that hunger, right? And so I think that's one of those things about Preston Judd that I really like so far, is he's going out there and he wants to make an immediate difference. And it's really great to see a new player like him step in, somebody who's most of his experience is basically like USL competition, and he comes into this squad after getting a limited amount of time with the LA Galaxy last year, and he scores a goal in the second game. He makes an impact, and he changed the dynamic of, he changed the dynamic. He changed what the team looked like when they were out there attacking. And I just feel like that's something that the Quakes need, right? That's something that the Quakes haven't had, somebody who has that opportunistic outlook when they get onto the pitch. And I would argue, like, we haven't seen somebody like that who's always in the right place at the right time since Chris Wondolowski. And I know that's like maybe a bit of a stretch, but it's true. Watch him when he's on the field, watch his positioning, and look at the way that he moves and creates those opportunities and the hunger that he has. If there's one thing you can say about Wondo, he was always hungry to score goals no matter what. And that's not taking anything away from Jeremy Ebobisse, right? Because look, Ebobisse he's done wonderful things for this team. He scored a lot of goals, but right now the Quakes need something a little bit different. And I agree with you. I think Lucci should be putting Preston up top.
I think you're grasping onto this one a little too strong. I think it's a little premature to be making Chris Wondolowski comparisons.
Look at
the comparison I'm willing to make is to Matthew Hoppe. I think Matthew Hoppe did that for long stretches last season.
Like that.
Matthew Hoppe was one of the best offensive contributors in the latter half of the season for San Jose. Without Matthew Hoppe, the Quakes would not have made the
playoffs. Which is why they brought him
last
back.
season. And look, Matthew Hoppe was that kind of player who is a player who is driving the ball forward, who is opportunistic, who is looking to pop up in spaces. I think they offer similar things to the Earthquakes. Preston Judd is obviously better in the box. He's better hold up. They're different players. But in terms of that like instinct and that opportunism, I think that Matthew Hoppe is probably the guy that I'd make the comparison to. And honestly, I think the Quakes miss that right now. I think the Quakes need that in this lineup. I think that Jack Scan has it. I think that Espinosa has it. I haven't seen it from Pellegrino yet, and I haven't seen it from the midfielders yet, and I haven't seen it from
So here's one thing I want to say, and this is not like necessarily a slight against Jackson Yueill as a player, but I've noticed that looks like we're getting Lucci Gonzalez. We'll come back to the point about Jackson in just a bit, but we want to move over to the press conference.
We'll start with questions in Spanish, starting with Paula Marie.
Muy buenas noches, Lucci. ¿Qué piensa de la determinación de Preston para anotar ese gol? ¿Y qué cambio le gustaría hacer para el próximo juego? Gracias.
Preston, sí, feliz por él, meter su gol contra su ex club y entró con energía en el área y crédito a él. Claro, muy decepcionado con el resultado. pensé que jugamos bien los primeros 15 minutos, causamos varios cruces, de pelota parada, corners, ofensivas, pero nos agarraron en transiciones y es un equipo muy bueno en transición, es un equipo con su talento en el medio campo, verticalidad, y hicieron su daño y tuvieron calidad en su ataque y nosotros no tuvimos nuestra calidad en nuestro ataque y nuestra calidad en defensa en transición, o sea que decepcionados es el clásico y no pido perdón como el profe, soy responsable y no no puedo aceptar este resultado. No puedo controlar el pasado, solamente es tener fe y seguir trabajando, responder con fe, con unidad y con incansabilidad. Y nosotros tenemos las piezas para resolver y buscar soluciones y vamos a seguir trabajando. Es muy temprano en la temporada. Vi cosas hoy también para agarrar positivas, pero el juego es meter goles y defender el gol y no lo hicimos bien. Y al final del día, en un clásico, un juego más agresivo, intenso, físico, se necesita en lo extra y es más importante que la táctica y ese es el aprendizaje en este momento.
Luchi, obviamente la decepción de que ser mucho, estabas muy ilusionado no solamente porque era el primer partido en casa, ¿no? Por lo que significaba la celebración 50 años. Los goles, como bien mencionas, son impresión, pero también los momentos, ¿no? Mentalmente es difícil entregar un gol antes de que termine la primera mitad, entregar un gol cuando empieza la segunda mitad. ¿Cómo manejar también el sentimiento de que es el primer partido y falta mucho, pero darle la importancia, ¿no? Que mencionas, ¿no? Lo que significa este partido.
Sí, es temprano, es temprano. Falta muchos puntos para batallar. Y nosotros estamos aprendiendo cosas duras en este momento. Como dijiste, en momentos claves dejamos de estar organizados y goles que te quita el ritmo y la confianza. Pero mira, es saber que el equipo puede mejorar eso en ese aspecto de la mentalidad, de estar atento, la picardía. Tenemos un buen vestuario, buenos chicos, buen grupo. Me encanta todos los días estar con ellos, el staff. Pero en el fútbol los buenos no te puede garantizar el resultado. El resultado viene con tener buena gente, pero también tener esa picardía y tener ese olfato de qué necesita el juego. Y tenemos que mejorar eso. Yo como profe en los entrenos y el grupo y bueno, tener un partido hoy te enseña ese tipo de lección.
All right, we will go to questions in English now. We will start with Robert Jonas right here.
Coach, you mentioned some of the positives in the first 15 minutes, but definitely LA was able to counterattack, and it seemed to be that there was just not enough effort in the midfield potentially to prevent those from even beginning. What are some of what are you going to be looking for in the team this week as you get ready for your next game? What improvements do you need to make to prevent that?
Yeah, they have speed in the wings, the attacking players, and so we have to do a better job. It's we can talk about the speed in our recovery and our tracking, but it's also intensity and closing things down right away. So just having a little bit of a more aggressive shape and organization to be able to kind of shut down those counters or be physical, maybe a foul, right? So there's things there I think that we were innocent in shutting down their offensive transition with their quickness and speed. And they were efficient and they had a lot of quality in their attacking sequences. And, we had almost 20 crosses versus 2 crosses. And it shows you like we were not efficient with our volume and we were not effective, maybe aggressive in the box to get contact. Christian, if he could get that opportunity again, I think he shoots the ball, right? Like it was just that kind of night where we weren't efficient. We didn't take advantage of the volume. And so the XG is not high. The XG doesn't reflect maybe the amount of times we got the ball near the box. So we've got to be more killers in the attacking sense as a team. And that includes set pieces. And because we had 9-10 corners. So, but defensive transition, that's effort first to the ball to kill it and obviously back. So there'll be plenty of clips to improve on. And it's a derby, and we didn't play with enough pride and physicality and energy reflecting that, and we're just really disappointed with that. And I apologize. I'm responsible as the head coach. I apologize to our fans, and can't control the past. I can only focus on the future, which is about responding. And I do believe in our group to respond. And we've got to focus on a competitive week and improve all the things that we were poor in tonight, and show a response against Vancouver.
All right, we will take a next question. We'll take our next question from everyone.
Hey, Lucci. In terms of those transitions, obviously it's a young season. You're still filling out the teams, but you saw some of the ability probably on the tape last week against Miami. Do you believe you underestimated the effectiveness that they would have in the transitions? Or do you think you prepared well but didn't execute well in the moment? Secondly, just the sub at halftime, did Carlos Capa come off for tactical reasons, or did he have not?
Yeah, it is early. There's a lot of points still to play for. And that is the only positive from tonight, honestly. But it's about each moment, focusing on finding solutions, and we're going to definitely do some exercises of when we play quick. I don't think we underestimated them at all. We actually showed them respect in our preparation. I thought we were very prepared, maybe over prepared, maybe too much respect, right? And my reflection is like, when maybe the better way to respect it is to be more aggressive and more physical with it, because that's the difference. The physicality and the intensity, the aggressiveness is more important than any tactics you can have. And so that's certainly a reflection. But I know we've got that in us, in our group. We've got some new players that just got welcomed to the league and to the level of dynamic play, offensively and defensively, there is in this league, and it's a great league. But we have pieces that I believe that we added for a reason, and we believe that they're gonna keep getting better and integrate to this group. Akapo he has a knock. He felt something in his heel, and he could not continue at half. So we had to make an adjustment. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious, because he's an important player for us.
Let's go to Michael Robertson.
All right, Coach. When you guys are down 3-0, what was the mood of this team and then the sideline, and then how much morale did that give to get that late goal?
3-0 is tough, on the sideline when things are not going to plan. And we went in, it was mentioned earlier, at halftime to give up that goal, keep it at 1-0. We're in that game, no problem. Second half, no doubt. Giving up 2-0 half, that's tough. But still, it's 2-0 is a dangerous score in our game. We know that. We knew that one moment at a time and one goal at a time can get us back in it second half. But then to give a goal up early, it's just was kind of the nail that sealed the coffin. It felt like it, even though it was plenty of minutes. If it was 3-1 earlier in the second, I still believe in the momentum in the group. We did create. I think it's a penalty on Jackson. He steps on his heel and the shoe comes off and it disrupts the play. It's ridiculous that's not a PK, and that makes it 3-2 with 6-7 minutes left. So the guys didn't give up, but it felt reactive. It felt too little, too late-ish, and but we can't give up. We can't control the last moment. We can only put action and effort, stay present with each moment coming forward, and that's what I'm going to do as a coach, and that's what we need to do this week in our response to training and on to the next thing.
We'll go to our next question. Alex Morgan online. Alex, do you have a question for Lucci?
We're back.
We're back. We made it. We just blew out everybody's eardrums. Hey, before we go any further, I did want to take a moment to thank a couple folks on YouTube who have donated to Quakes Epicenter. Brian Hoovler, thank you so much for your donation. We really appreciate that. We appreciate your contribution and for always joining us here at the Aftershock. And I'd also like to thank KMJ Vet for your contribution as well. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us tonight and for supporting the show. All right, let's get back to it, Alex. As it appears, your question was so challenging for Lucci that he just left the press conference.
Somebody pulled the plug right before I could ask it. Suspicious.
Yeah, no. But, you know, quite a lot of platitudes there from Lucci. He actually did something that we heard him do last season, which is apologize to the fans for the performance and for the result. I think that's twice now that he's done that. But I think there's one thing that both made us raise our eyebrows here, and that was Lucci's reference to the penalty, which I think you and I tend to both agree that talking about the refs is not necessarily something that's going to move things forward for the team, right? And aside from the fact that it was questionable at best. But what were some of the things that stood out to you in this press conference here, some of the responses that Lucci gave?
Yeah, I think Lucci's reaction was tepid. While I appreciate the apology to the fans, because I think it's absolutely necessary after you show up and get run off the field in the home opener, I think he can be more aggressive about holding his players accountable, holding players like Carlos Gruezo and Jackson Yu accountable, because the question that I wanted to ask him was about those two players, right? Those two players are guys that have been in his system for a year now. Right. Carlos Gruezo was signed by Lucci Gonzalez. He was signed by Lucci Gonzalez, and he's the club that chose, and yet he was not doing the role he was asked. He was not covering, and he was not tracking back. So I think Lucci Gonzalez could be more aggressive in holding his players accountable. And offering excuses about the referees is ridiculous. Yeah. Everybody on the chat knows that nobody was going to score after that point in the game, and that it probably wasn't even a penalty in the first place. So
I didn't go back and look at it myself, so I don't know that I necessarily agree with that point. But one thing that's really important too, Alex, is the fact that the Quakes do have options at the position. Now, as you mentioned, Carlos Gruezo is, in fact, hey, Jamin, really glad to have you with us here.
Getting the camera issue sorted out.
Yeah. So the point I'm making right now, and one thing we've talked a lot about on the show since you've been gone, is some of the issues that the Quakes have in the defensive mid position. The first goal was a matter of Carlos Gruezo committing to the press, leaving wide open space, and then we saw Marky Delgado occupy that space and then find Paint Still on the wing, which ended up leading to the goal, right? And so the point I was going to try to make is, like, look, the Quakes also have other options at the position, despite the fact that this is one of their major signings. They also have Alfredo Morales waiting in the wings as well. So you had an opportunity to listen to some of Lucci's responses in the press conference, and I'm curious as to what you think about that. And then if you want to just add some of your general ideas about the match now that you're here with us, now's the time.
Yeah, I mean, I started with, my question was about, the counterattack situation. Robert Jonas also asked that. We're still getting the camera situation worked out if everyone can hang in. I think we finally got it.
Hey, glad to be back.
All right, we're getting Alex back in here. It's Alex's, Alex's password was required or something was
all
going
three of
on
us
there.
On camera now.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully it stays that way.
So, and Robert Jonas is going to see if he can get more audio outside the locker room and come and join us as soon as he can.
Great.
Yeah, so I thought Lucci kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of the lack of physicality. We saw it one time during the break. There was a yellow card that was earned. There needed to be more of that. Sometimes you have to be able to knock a player, on their can if necessary when that gets out in those situations. And what he said is that largely we over-prepared. We were giving them too much respect. If anything, we didn't underestimate them. We gave them too much respect, and we should have just played more physically in those situations. And certainly, that's what's required in a professional game. When, you've got a player like that, you have to get them to respect you. You have to be more physical with them. And honestly, it was a little bit too much trying to be perfect with picking up marks in a very fluid situation. And it's the second game of the season, and they did it poorly. And there are new players out there, in the second half. Vitor Costa had to come on at halftime due to the knock that was picked up by Acapo, we learned at halftime. Acapo had to come off. Vitor Costa was in there. And, he's trying to organize, he's trying to acclimate into the game, and the third one happens, pretty quickly. So all these things are just one thing after the other. I think if there's something you can take that's a positive from the game, it's that early on, before that first counterattack goal, the Earthquakes had good movement. They were making runs. You saw what they're trying to do with Skane. You saw what they were trying to do with Pellegrino. They were making those off the ball runs. Pellegrino was trying to get active in the box. But he's a different player. And the type of player that he is going to be more of a smooth player, off the ball player. It's the Johan Cruyff. 3% of the time a player has the ball in the game. What matters is what they do with the other 97% of the time. Pellegrino's not a 3% player. He's a 97% player. The Earthquakes haven't really had a player like this, in my recollection, before. It's going to take time to get that integrated. And once you get down, obviously the game is going to start to pick up. The game is starting to get more physical. You're going to commit more numbers forward. And when you commit those numbers forward, you have to be able to adjust to these potential counterattack situations in a team like the Galaxy that have the weapons to know exactly what to do on the counterattack. They look a bit like the 21, Seattle Sounders right now. They knew how to get out on that counterattack. They knew how to score goals. They had a way of doing it, and they were going to punish you early on. This Galaxy team looks like they're going to be a very punishing team on these counters.
Jim, I want to start briefly by agreeing with you on a few points, because I think
I know you're going to disagree.
We're on the opposite side of the table today, so we have to disagree about a few things. I want to agree with you that it felt like the Quakes were over-prepared, because it felt like they had, at any given time, 100 pieces of information going through their heads, and they missed the things that were glaringly obvious. And the things that were glaringly obvious is that you need to mark Ricky Pooch. They did not mark Ricky Pooch. 100%. And you need to prevent those counterattacks, and you need to drop and protect zone 14 right in front of the box. They did not do that. And also, I don't think that's a new problem. I think that this is something we saw last season too, and it's actually the one thing that Luchi Gonzalez admitted at the end of last season as well, which was in those home games that they were playing, when a win would have solidified their spot in the playoffs and would have gotten them a home playoff spot, they played too nervously. They played too tepidly. They were not pushing the ball, being aggressive. I would have hoped he learned his lesson from that game, but he didn't learn his lesson from those games, because this is the home opener. This is the one time of the season where you want to be, it's a rivalry game as well, pushing the tempo early on. You want to be aggressive. You want to be physical, and you want to maybe forget about some of the superfluous tactical information that he's loading in these players' brains. And that was a big problem tonight. So I want to agree with you on that. I want to extend the olive branch to you and start on a good note.
The press box was a little bit tenuous, let's say, and toward the end of the game there.
That's right. Well, let's welcome Robert Jonas here. Welcome, Robert. We're really glad to have you here with us. You had an opportunity to step over and listen to some of the responses and actually hear the questions that were being asked in the press conference as well to Luchi Gonzalez and Preston Judd. So if you could share some of your thoughts and some of your takeaways from the match.
Yeah, I saw you guys hanging out over here. Figured I better join. I'm going to sort of say a little bit about what Luchi said, which was basically this was a forget it game. He basically apologized to the fans. This was not the team's best performance. He recognized that. He had an interesting response, Jamin, to your question. I don't know if you already talked about it.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, the idea of just being over-prepared. And I think that dovetailed a little bit with what I was asking about, just how that midfield was getting run over. And it started with maybe just showing a little too much respect and just getting beat when it got into the transition, not taking an early foul, not taking a yellow, anything like that to just make LA not feel as comfortable. It just didn't do enough to make LA feel like they were going to be the visitors and going to be under pressure tonight. I was, unfortunately, I think they wasted a good Jack Skane performance, especially in the first half. I was really pleased with the way he played. I
had a little rant about that before.
Yeah, okay, very good. I missed that, but I wouldn't have thrown my hat to the Jack track there. I thought he did very well tonight. He was one of the brighter spots for me. It didn't feel like the team was prepared, even if Luchi wants to call it that, for what LA could do. And that was just really disappointing to see tonight.
I think the league's about to find out what LA can do.
Yeah.
They've had a good offseason, as much as it pains, Quakes fans to admit it. I think the Galaxy are probably back, at least from what we've seen in the first 2 games. They did well against, a Miami team that was tired, but you could see the potential last week in the way that they were able to transition. And this week, they put it fully kind of together. Now we'll see, okay, now that they're showing this to the league, how does the league respond to the Galaxy? But they're certainly going to have a lot of respect going forward, and we'll see how teams have to prepare for them. I'm going to agree on Jack Skane. I know that was a bit controversial tonight. I felt that he was about the only player, other than Pellegrino at the beginning, the only player who was really trying to make the runs that was going to unsettle the defense. And at times you could see that if the pass had been a little bit better in this situation, if if he had been seen making those runs the way he should have been seen, whatever the case is, these are things that hopefully come together quickly. And of course, he's occupying a space that is the 800-pound, elephant in the room right now, or maybe it's not. Maybe elephants are more than 800 pounds. Those are gorillas.
Carlos
right?
Vela-sized elephant.
The Carlos Vela-sized elephant in the room right now. So he's kind of occupying that space, but a little bit concerning if he's your most active player, if he's your most pressing player, in terms of trying to win the ball and be able to counter press. I felt he was putting forth the effort in the first half that we were seeing was lacked in other places. It wasn't always perfect. The passes weren't always coming off. He didn't always make the right decisions. But I felt that the pressing, the effort, the ability to make the commitment to the runs was there. If he's the player coming off the field for Carlos Vela, that could be a bit of a concern.
And so,
comes to the Quakes.
Jamin, we're in agreement on 2 things today. We need to keep track of the second is that the Quakes are going to sign a new DP number 10. We learned from today's game that they need a new DP number 10. They need a guy who's going to be driving that midfield. Otherwise, they're not going to succeed this season. I think we learned that tonight, especially in the second half when they tried 4 different players there. They tried Jebo, Judd, Pellegrino, and Skane all in that position. None of them were working the way they needed to. They need that DP number 10. That's just a given that they need to go out and get that. The question is, when that DP number 10 gets here, who does he replace? And I think on the basis of this performance, he should be replacing Carlos Gruezo or Jackson Ewell, because those are the 2 players who are at fault defensively. If they're not contributing anything defensively and they're not contributing anything offensively, they shouldn't be on the field. And so that means you should keep Jack Skane, who's going to be moving the ball forward up the pitch, who's going to be creating chances, who's going to be dynamic, and will do his job defensively because he has the work rate of a jackrabbit in there. He should be all on the field. So I'd like to see a combination with Ewell, Skane, and whoever that new number 10 is. I think that's the midfield that I want to see going forward.
That's going to be quite a bit of turnover there, if that were to happen. But these are hypotheticals, right? Like we don't know what exactly is going to happen with the number 10 position in the next few weeks. But one thing we do know is that the Quakes have a match coming up against the Vancouver Whitecaps. And so my question is to all of you, where do the Quakes go from here? A 2-1 loss on the road against FC Dallas, a heartbreaking stoppage time loss, a game in which they actually had the lead at one point, right? They come home and they play their rivals to open the season here at home against the LA Galaxy. It's a terrible loss, so bad that the coach apologizes in the press conference. Where does Luchi Gonzalez go from here? Jamin, what do you think? What do you want to see different in Vancouver? What is Luchi going to have to do to get some points?
Well, first, we don't know the Carlos Ocampo situation well enough to know if he's going to be available in that game. So you might get your shot to be able to see what Vitor Costa is going to be able to do on the left, and Paul Marie on the right seems like a distinct possibility right now. I think you're going to need to look at that first half. That last season, Vancouver, at least at BC Place, showed the Quakes how they can basically take real control of a game. And the Earthquakes are the ones that came out and were able to get on a counterattack and be able to get a goal. So there's already kind of a blueprint from the perspective of Sartini about how he would want to be able to play the Quakes and be able to control the midfield again. So the Quakes are going to have to be very intentional about how they press to make sure that they don't get in a situation like tonight where they get a bit caught out. They get chasing the game. They get too far forward. Honestly, Rodriguez probably needs to stay home until they figure things out a little bit more. I think his wandering potentially, in a couple situations pulls a player out. Everyone else has to adjust a bit too much. And I know you're trying to be a bit more unpredictable here with the attack, but at the same time, I'm not sure that that's the right thing until this defense comes back together again. For the most part, you started a defense tonight that you had, last season. And that defense at home was stout. It was a very good defense at home. Tonight, not so much.
All right, well, I'm gonna ask the same question to you, Robert, to bring you back into the conversation here, especially since we got a bit of a sense from Alex what he thinks the biggest issue is here, Carlos Grueso being one of them. But Jamin makes a really good point in that we might not actually see Carlos Acapo back if it's true that he has an injury that he's going to be dealing with. He might not actually travel to Vancouver. So in your eyes, what are the changes that Lucci's going to have to make if the Quakes are going to at least pick up a point on the road?
I think a lot of the changes are going to be in the preparation for this game. I mean, we saw it in the team maybe overthinking and not playing tonight at times. And when you get into that mode where you're constantly thinking about the instructions you've been working on all week, guys run right by you and score goals. And that's a kind of a simplification. But if you can go out there with more of the abandon of, we know what we need to do, but we're going to go play this game. We're going to take it to the opponent much, much more aggressively at times. That's going to change things. Take an early yellow if you have to, if you're going to stop a counterattack, but don't just let a team walk over you like we saw the Galaxy walk over the Quakes at times today. If they can be the aggressor against a team that Sartini coaches, which we know they love bombing forward, they love playing heavy and hard. The Quakes have to match that intensity and then some. If they can do that, I mean, it's not a tactical answer, but it's more of an emotional answer. What this team needs to do to respond.
And Alex, what do you think, man? If not tactically, emotionally, I mean, do you agree with that point? Is it? Are we already at that point? 3 games into this season?
I'm not going to give the tactical or emotional answer. I think I'm going to give the obvious answer. And the obvious
you should close Alex's notebook and make sure that the rain doesn't.
We are getting rained on right now.
It on now.
Yeah.
It's fitting. It's fitting for a night like this.
Yeah.
I brought a hood.
The obvious answer is that Bruno Wilson should be starting because he looked good when he came on in the second half. Yeah. Tanner Beeson was running all over the place. He did not cover himself in glory tonight. Bruno Wilson, not only defensively was pretty solid, but offensively, he was looking to drive the ball forward. He was looking to make passes. He was good offensively and defensively, and it allows Rodriguez to move over to the left side, which is where I think he's better.
Sure.
And I think that's an obvious change to make this defense better, is to bring Bruno Wilson in there. I would also like to see Benji Ikanovich back in the starting lineup. I don't think that Pellegrino earned that spot tonight. I think Benji Ikanovich, after the goal that he had against Dallas, after the strong performance he had against Dallas, deserves to be back in that starting position because he can make things happen down the wing.
I think it's not just that, it's the defense that he can bring as well. I think his defense at this point, for sure, is stronger than Pellegrino's in terms of his understanding of the league, in terms of, his ability to play physical. I think right now he's more physical. He's going to bring more physicality than Pellegrino. I think this is something that Lucci's going to have to watch. It's going to probably be a matchup type decision as to where do you use Pellegrino until he adapts to the physicality of the league.
Look, let's be real. Opposing scouts, they're going to see that all 3 goals happened the exact same way, which is attacks down the left side and cutbacks. And so the Quakes are going to need to sort out the issue with cutbacks. That's why I've been so hard in the midfield. They're also going to need to sort out the issue of attacks down the left. And I think a big problem tonight was Amal Pellegrino does not cover, does not get goal side. He's not going to be, busting his butt to get back and defend on that left side in the way that Cade Cowell did. Appreciated that about Cade Cowell, in the way that even Benji Ikanovich does. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think defensively they need that cover. They need somebody who's going to be covering, especially when it's Vitor Costa in there. Because on the basis of tonight's performance, I'm not sure that Vitor Costa is going to be an upgrade in that left back position. He was a very average night tonight. And I'm not sure that he has a super high ceiling that's going to make this team better.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see his adjustments. I think he's a question mark. He was brought in to compete for that starting job, and now he's going to be put in the limelight, most likely. I would say, into the starting role.
A lot of great points, you guys. I actually wanted to direct folks over to QuakesEpicenter.com before we go over to Robert one last time here. Check out QuakesEpicenter.com where you can find our latest articles on our Patreon. You can get early access for just $2 a month. You get not only early access, but you kind of get some of the other parts of the website for $5 a month. You can also get the Patreon or the Slack. Sorry, the rain is like throwing me off right now. I'm like losing my words. You can get access to the Slack and you can chat with us not only during the matches, but during the week as well.
3 new articles. Right?
There are I brought this up as well because, again, I want to reference the article that Dominic put out about the new players who've come onto the team. I highly recommend checking out the scouting report and seeing what these guys have done outside of the work with the Earthquakes. We're going to have to wrap things up here really soon because the rain's really starting to come down. But I want to take it over to Robert Jonas for your final thoughts before we get on out of here tonight, and then we'll get the rest from you guys as well.
I love the way Pellegrini runs. You just got to get him the ball.
Nice, Robert.
Very nice. Alex Morgan.
Yeah, I had the chance, I think, at the beginning of tonight's show to get a lot of things off my chest. So
yeah, you were buzzing the microphones.
Apparently, it was
to the mics.
I hope that this is, the worst that we see the Earthquakes at this season. I hope that is the worst that we see the Earthquakes at this season, and they will continue to improve and get better from this point on. I think that I want to give Jamin credit. Amal Pellegrino does need more time to integrate. I don't think he had a good performance tonight. I didn't see a ton of positives from his performance after maybe the 15th minute. I think there was an okay 15 minutes there at the beginning. But I think that will get better with time. I think that getting a new DP number 10 is huge. I don't think that's going to be Carlos Vela. I don't think it should be Carlos Vela. I think that most likely his agent was shopping him around, and in order to get him, a couple $100,000 extra in his new LAFC contract that I expect him to sign. So my guess is that's what happens to Carlos Vela. Want to say that because there were a lot of questions in the chat about that. But the Quakes do still need a number 10. And if they get a number 10, I think they can improve throughout the rest of the season. And that, Luchi Gonzalez can adapt. The Earthquakes also struggled at times at the beginning of last year. And I think this is a worse start to the season than they had last year. But I expect that he will be able to adapt and find ways to improve this team moving forward.
All right. Bit of optimism there from Alex. Thanks. And Jamin Moore, your final thoughts before we get on out of here tonight.
We should get out of here. No, I agree with everything that they said. And, I do think that, if it's going to be Carlos Vela, it's going to create more questions, not more answers, particularly as they play defense. Fun questions. It would be fun, but those fun questions are going to be, now you have to improve a defense with a player who can't press. And in a defense tonight that gave up 3 goals, at least 2 of which they should not have given up. And, that's the big open question for me.
Just to be clear, I would love Carlos Vela in San Jose. I think that would be an awesome signing. I think it would make the team better. You know what you're getting. You're going to get 10 goals plus a season.
I think I see Carlos up here. I'm going to go check it
out. All right. Hey, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to direct everybody once again to QuakesEpicenter.com.
Shock in the rain.
In the rain. Follow us on Twitter or X. Follow us on Instagram as well. Make sure you turn on those notifications and subscribe. I want to thank folks again for their donations tonight. We really appreciate it. Make sure you get on that Patreon and get on there with us on the Slack. That's it for tonight.
I don't think this rain Carlos Vela on San Jose. If I were Carlos Vela watching this game,
it just it does great things for my curls, and so I'm really glad that it's happening right now.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Devil.